BMW M4 is an icon among sports sedans. We have done an entire feature film where we drove every single generation. We talked about how this has become a known monster from when it was a racer as a DTM car all the way up to present day.
When we got to the M4, the new one, we were wondering, what do we put this car with? There is only one that shares its length, its weight, its width, its power and redline, and the nice fastback shape. The Ford Mustang Mach-1.
On first glance, you would think, no way they're similar, but the more you drive them, the more you realize, are these clones of each other? Was one of these manufacturers looking at the other one? They are that close.
All the specs stack up, except for the price. The big differentiating factor in finding what you want as a driver.
You're watching Everyday Driver. We make a TV show, podcast, and YouTube channels dedicated to great cars, driving adventures, and helping you find a car you'll love.
Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing.
Of classic car shapes on the market, this one has been around so long. Look at the roofline all the way back to the rear spoiler. It's gorgeous. I like what Ford has done with Mach-1 from the trim perspective, but look at this gorgeous sculpture and how it accentuates power under the hood. That is what Mustang is all about. And you wrap around to the back, classic taillights, modernized, but that trunk lid leans in just so with the Mach-1 name.
This fighter jet gray is a unique color to the Mach-1. Of course, you can get it in actual colors, which I would prefer. These orange stripes on the side are actually reflective, so when you hit them just right like a runner's shoes, they will glow.
The headlight revisions have made it modern. What I don't understand is why there aren't those accessory lights. Those should either be air intakes or lights or something else besides black plastic.
The price on this special Mach-1 is harder to swallow when you look at the interior and realize you essentially bought a Mustang GT.
You're going to get into the Mustang Mach-1 and you're going to wonder where your $60,000 went. It's in the mechanics, it's in the adaptive suspension, all the parts, they're cribbed off the GT350.
You can set this car up to your settings, of course, steering, feel, and aggressiveness to the suspension and the shifting. All of that is stuff you can set up under My Mode. It makes the setup of this car one touch. If you have to deal with the toggles down here, bring some patience.
For your modes, you only go up, and that means you have to toggle through all of them and go back to the start. I want to push down on these switches to go the other way.
In here you have the latest in sync from Ford, which of course will do Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Great HVAC controls. The Americans know how to do air conditioning.
The driving position is okay for me, but I want to be lower. I want to push the power button and bring the seat down. I want to have a little bit lower eye level. That's the compromise. For most people, I think they're going to be just fine, and there's plenty of space. The problem is the back seats are for kids only.
The similarity of these cars when you put them next to each other is amazing. The difference is once you get around, well, to that front.
The beaver teeth, the nostrils, are essential to this car for cooling. I understand that. But just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean it works for BMW. Everywhere else, it's clean, it's beautiful, it's elegant. It's like a wireframe of a car connected with beautiful surfaces. A line here, a shoulder line, a fender flare, a character line down low, the rockers. But when you walk around the front, every time, I shudder. So as soon as you can get inside the car, I suggest that, where it is actually gorgeous.
There's less piano black in this version than we've had in recent BMW cars because all of it's gone to this carbon fiber look. How much of it's actually carbon fiber, you're gonna have to dig.
The biggest thing about differentiating luxury cars is not just materials, it's shapes. Yes, the shapes have to be beautiful and clean and relate to the exterior design, and they have to look like they'll last a long time, but you can see that the screen here, even though it has all the tech in BMW's 7th generation iDrive, yes, this is not the focus of the car.
The problem with this original gauge cluster on BMWs is it's not as easy to read the RPM as you might like, which is why they have M mode, which changes to make everything you need to see. That is incredibly succinct and very easy to work with.
I do feel like I'm in an excellent driving position, and BMW and Volvo make the best seats. BMW is not letting me down. These are brilliant, and I want to be here for a long trip. And that is the beauty of a car like this. The long legs, the long wheelbase for a nice ride on the freeway. And it can do the track thing too.
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Covercraft. Use the code EVERYDAY21 for 10% off your order.
The M4 is powered by a derivative of the 3-liter engine that you find in the Supra and many other places. It is the S58 inline 6, 3-liter, making 473 horsepower, only 406 pound-feet of torque. That doesn't sound like very much. But the beauty of this engine is that it is indeed twin-turbo.
Because of those turbos, it has power all the time in a way that, of course, the Mustang as a naturally aspirated car has to find it. This with twin turbos just has power now because you asked. BMW has all kinds of assistance in this, including, yes, you've heard about it, Drift Coach. If you would like to drift and know, how am I doing as a drifter? Well, you could turn on Drift Coach and try to get 5 stars. I love the irony of the fact that you're rebellious enough you'd like to drift, but conservative enough you'd really like someone to give you a grade for it.
As M cars have progressed, it's felt like the mechanical feel has been engineered out of them. Whereas the 80s and 90s M cars that had all these parts working together, that has returned in the M4. Not completely, but it's there. BMW, if you change this and offer all future owners of this car who order it like this and want to change, and you just give them the new front clip, you will be redeemed, because this is the car to have. This is truly a driver's car. A 2+2 Grand Tour shouldn't do this. Come on. Ah, that is so satisfying.
This is brilliantly well engineered, and it just feels fast for bragging rights. In fact, it feels like while the design team was going, we're going to show the world something, the dynamics team said, well, we got to recover from that, let's work extra hard, with a brilliant result.
The Mach-1 name has returned, and the Mach-1 name suggests that you could order your car in hundreds of different ways, like you could from 1969 through the mid-70s. That is no longer the case. Ford went shopping through their own departments and selected all the parts that were really designed for the best balance of road use and track use.
While this is the engine out of the standard Ford Mustang GT, it's been tweaked a bit. It's almost directly the same amount of power as that twin-turbo BMW engine.
It makes so much power that you'll spend most of your time below 4,000 RPM. You just don't need that much. And 480 doesn't sound like very much. And 420 pound-feet of torque sounds like, try harder next time. But it's so very powerful.
The Mustang feels significantly lighter than the BMW. If you drive them back to back, this feels like the far lighter car. However, the Mustang is heavier. It's heavier, which is inexplicable when you drive them back to back. This for sure feels like it weighs less than the BMW, but this weighs almost 4,000 pounds, 3,900 and change for this automatic version of the Mustang Mach-1. This should come with a third pedal. The number of times on this shoot I've gotten into this car after the BMW and just subconsciously I think this is the car that should have the third pedal. And I get in the BMW and forget to put my foot on the clutch. Everything about this Mustang Mach-1 feels like this is a car with a 6-speed manual and a clutch pedal, and it isn't. Granted, you can get it that way. We asked for it with a clutch pedal, but they didn't have one available at the time we shot this.
We do not need 10 speeds, and the automatic transmission seriously detracts from the enjoyment of this car. Manual is how this should come. Mustangs never were designed for fuel economy. Yes, you have the EcoBoost engine, but that's not the point. That's not why people buy a Mustang. You want the power and the noise and the thunder and the glory. That's why you get a Mustang.
When you're driving quickly and you expect the transmission to be fast, it does a surprisingly good job. But even then, it's better on downshifts than it is upshifts. if you put your foot in it while in automatic mode, it will probably jump 4 or 5 ratios to get you the power that you've just asked for.
It's nowhere close to the automatics that we've driven in Alfa Romeos, and it certainly isn't giving me the rev matching that I need. Yeah.
More of that. This is the reason you buy a V8. You want to feel it rumble. You don't want smoothness. You don't want quietness. You want anger, rumble, growl. What other cliched terms can we come up with here?
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Haggerty. Let's drive together.
One of the biggest surprises about this car is how well it handles.
You look at the weight of the car, you look at the wheelbase. It's too long and heavy and wide, and it shouldn't do the cornering thing like it does. It hangs on and turns in better than most cars that I've driven.
There's less body roll here than there is in the Mustang. This M4 has a variable steering rack from about 14.5 to about 11:1. So it gets significantly sharper depending upon how you use it. It can be very sharp in a parking lot, it can be very sharp in the middle of a corner.
BMW has engineered the rack to have more closely spaced teeth the harder you turn in. There's so much performance out there, it's unnatural. That's what's crazy and exciting about it.
When you're driving, depending upon your mode, the steering changes how difficult it is to work with here, but it has no connection or information to the tires. Someone needs to tell the good folks at BMW that there is a difference between steering weight and steering feel, because they've just drawn an equal sign and said, well, we used to have really good hydraulic steering feel. Now, if we just give our electric steering weight, it'll be kind of like the same thing. And it's kind of not.
This is a great example of what technology does to cars to continue making them relevant and more interesting to drive. And the precision of the M4 is what stands out to me. The suspension, the adaptive dampers, the steering input, the steering ratio, everything is adding up to a new driving experience.
This reminds me actually of the first time I drove a Nissan GTR, where I marveled from the driver's seat and was shocked behind the wheel at all of the things it could do and make it look easy. But the entire time I just found myself amazed more than engaged. This has surprisingly good handling dynamics. It does have more body roll than the BMW. It isn't quite as sharp on turn-in. However, it's more fun. Every time I put this through a corner, I feel like I'm working with it. I feel like I'm actually engaging with the corner. I get not necessarily steering feel, but an awareness of what the tires are doing. You can tell which tire's under stress as you go through the corner. The car tells you more here.
Both these cars have adaptive dampers, and it dramatically changes the driving experience because it manages the weight. And that's what it's doing on the pony car, is it's managing the horse, going over the terrain. And then once you get into full gallop, yeah, all the metaphors, bring them all, because that is what this car feels like to drive.
In the case of this Mustang, I'm continually impressed with how well it handles and how well it deals with any kind of corner you want to throw at it. It does ask you to be involved, though.
You have to work for the precision. You have to work more for your line. You have to work more for the placement of the car. But that adaptive suspension is the thing. That just positions the weight of the car just right for you.
When you push the Mustang Mach-1 pretty hard, at the upper edges, it does start to have a hint of understeer. If it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong with understeer. You can tell that. Of course, you can put your right foot in it and bring the back around, sort that out real quick. This handles incredibly well, and I love how communicative it is in steering. This doesn't have the BMW's laser focus in a corner, but it has all the fun the BMW lacks.
Mustang now has the electric version, the Mach-E. Let's leave it there. Let's get bad gas mileage. Let's make this only manual transmission and make it a special thing for owners.
This Mach-1, even though it's just milking the current generation of the Mustang, is a reminder that the Mustang is excellent. It's surprisingly fun. And how does it hide its weight? I don't think there is a person or product that hides its weight as well as the current Ford Mustang. 3,900 pounds is too heavy. And yet you drive this after the BMW and this feels lighter. It's much more playful. And that engine note's just fun, isn't it? Come on. Yes. Let's downshift again. Because we can.
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Autotempest.com. All the cars, one search.
Ford is continually searching for how to sell more Mustangs, Mustang Classics. How do they justify keeping this platform around and making it better? Well, refining it and making it more fun to drive. So I'm all for throwing tech at this. As much as everybody wants this to stay old school, it can't.
The thing about the Mustang is you aren't sitting here marveling at what technology can do. You're driving it going, you see what I did? I just like that better.
It's the new tech interpretation of the analog driving experience, which I'm fine with. I'm all for tech. I'm all for the proliferation of technology because look what it's done to keeping cars like this alive. The big problem now, of course, is has the styling overcome my desire to own this car? Is it standing in the way? That's my problem, and yes, it is.
This BMW M4 feels more like a car for social media than for solitary driving. Look at the front end. Do you think it's ugly? Look at how fast I went. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh, did you see? My drift coach said I'm this good today. What happened to just taking a great car out on a back road and enjoying it? This car is very fast on that back road, but it's serving it up in such a way that you're amazed by how fast you went, but I don't think you were necessary. I don't think you earned any of it. It's just fast all the time.
I've never come to a car where I've had such conflict in deciding, do I want it? Do I not want it?
I agree with that.
What do I want? It's so brilliant to drive. You've just heard both of us praise this car because it is good. The BMW Motorsports people know explicitly what they're doing.
M is for magician.
I agree.
The stuff that they do defies logic, physics. You heard me talk about it. I cannot believe how good this car is to drive.
Yes.
And I'm picking the Mustang.
Is it because of the styling?
No. I find myself gravitating toward the Mustang because I just like to engage with it. I like to drive it. I can't take a single thing away from the BMW dynamically. It is much better than I ever expected. It is better than it should be. And yet, I'm just kind of cold.
This has the more natural driving experience. Despite the electric power steering,
Yes.
I like the natural feel through the corners of this car. But it isn't exciting like the GT 350. It had an excitement and a buzz about it that this is now a Mustang. We're back to this being a good Mustang, but it's a Mustang. This has the excitement and power and kind of a visceral nature that was missing in prior M cars that I'm astonished to start feeling again. It's not all the way there. There's a little bit of it.
It's better than the prior M4. I'll give you that for sure.
And that's why I'm choosing it. Except I get to be in it and the rest of the world has to look at it. Haha. If there is indeed a Mach-E now, can we get past these Mustang Classics and go for the next and really keep them around and push on the tech and push on how they drive? Can we do that? Can we all agree? Because if Ford does that, I'll be happy.
You could have theoretically bought yourself a Mustang GT 350 for $60,000. This doesn't have that crazy engine and it's essentially the same price. That's a little hard to justify. That doesn't take away the fact that this is a special Mustang.
I want to tell you to buy this car. I really do. I cannot stand the front. I cannot stand the teeth. But if you can look past that, and you're a BMW fan, and you can somehow, deep in your heart, overlook this design, you will have one hell of a brilliant car.
You ever meet somebody else's spouse and think, wow, they're really awesome. I see why they married them. I'm really glad I didn't. That's the M4. I'm impressed. I can see what's great about it. I just don't want one.